Okay. Hi, folks. Welcome to the April 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Town of Kennebunkport Planning Board. And so let us start with attendance. I see Mike and what's his name there? Ed are here.
We need a verbal from both if they are to vote.
Yeah. So
Yes, I'm here.
and Mike.
Mike West is here.
Okay, super. And so what that means is only George is missing.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, so the first thing is the minutes from last time.
I thought they were fine. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay,
I approve.
approve,
Approve.
and Ed.
Approve.
Okay. Good. Well, here's our agenda for this evening. First item is item 240301, Goose Rocks Beach Association. Copy environmental agent, so. Proceed
How are you?
and identify yourself and,
Chris Copey, Copey Environmental. It's actually, sorry, it's a long O sound, it's Italian. Yeah, and I am here on behalf of Goose Rocks Beach Association to discuss a proposed pickleball court. And before I do that, I'd like to, Tara Gregorio is the president of the association. She's with us as well as other members of the board. And Arthur Cassavant, the treasurer of the board, is actually here via Zoom. I know I've spoke in front of you a few times, but I'd like to just give you a brief background of my experience as Galen is new to the town. So I have over 20 years combined experience, training, education, environmental science, wetland science, soil science. After graduating at UMass Lowell, I worked, did some jobs with the Forest Service, EPA, and 10 years as a DEP regulator, as an enforcement and compliance manager. After that, I hopped the fence and joined the consulting side of things, and for the last 4 years, I've had my own company. Yeah. So I'm gonna grab this, get out front.
Give it a pull straight up.
Straight up, like that, yep, you said that way. Great. I just want to pop in front here. So, basically, the board contacted me to do some due diligence to see where we could put this new pickleball court. So in August of '23, I mapped the wetlands on the property, which is 19 Community House Road, and that's 36-1-1. That would be the property to the right here. They also own the property to the left, which is 41-6. 1B. And as you can see, I mapped some forested wetlands here that abut the tennis court. Those do not require setback. They are forested wetlands primarily. They are a wetland of special significance because they're within 250 feet of a coastal wetland, which is, I'm going to get into that next to talk about the shoreland zone. But they don't require setback. We are not proposing any wetland impact, so we do not need any core permits or DEP permits. And later that year, in November, I wanted to verify the shoreland zone. As you know, most municipalities require a verification of the shoreland zone. And in this case, per the zoning map, the off-site wetland is a coastal wetland. It's a combination of coastal wetland and freshwater wetland. And when I say freshwater wetland, as defined in the ordinance, does not include forested wetlands, so it does not include trees. So I did traverse out there, and I did some mapping and observations, and I mapped the edge of the forested and coastal wetland edge, and added the 250-foot shoreline zone buffer to that. If you have taken a look at the shoreline zoning map, this is actually more restrictive. The shoreline zoning map shows less coverage over the two properties in my work, okay? And when we go out to the site, I can show you those boundaries, no problem. And so you could see this 250-foot zone, it's in orange, and setbacks from that would be a 75-foot setback. And as you can see, the property is way over the setback. The setback line doesn't even reach the property line. You can see right here in green. Okay? So we're not subject to any setbacks. We're just subject to the standards in the zones, which are two zones, shoreline zone, and then the remaining area on the property would be Goose Rocks zone. A little bit about the property as it sits today. We have existing tennis courts and a building, about 3,000 square feet. A small storage building that's going to be removed, that's inside the shoreline zone, okay, right here. And if you look at the shading, so a portion of the existing tennis court to the northwest and a portion of the existing basketball court and also that shed, those are the areas of non-vegetated surfaces in the shoreline zone. So non-vegetated surface in the shoreline zone includes everything that's impervious. So that would be buildings, any type of services that are impervious to infiltration, okay? So we approximated that our shoreline zone coverage for non-vegetated surface is 26.6%. And with this proposal, we're proposing 25.9% shoreline zone coverage. So we're actually decreasing our non-vegetated surface inside the shoreline zone. And I'm going to get into how we're doing that. The meat and potatoes is this existing court, which is 78 by 32, and you can see it right here, okay? 78 by 32. We are proposing to add a 30 by 32 court to transform that whole court into two courts. So we're going to actually transform it into a half court, half basketball court, and we're going to utilize the 30 by 30, the remaining 30 by 32 court, and add another 30 by 32 to come up with a 60 by 32 pickleball court. So half of which is new, half of which is already existing, and it already has a court surface. Okay? So, and if you look, the new court is going to be outside the shoreline zone and in the Goose Rock zone. And it's not counted towards lot coverage because lot coverage in the Goose Rocks only includes buildings and accessory structures around them. Doesn't include courts. Now, we are increasing impervious by 1% from 38.6 to 39.7 because it's those numbers are requested on the application. So we provided those. I'm trying to see what are the other highlights. So yeah, there you have it. The new 30 by 32, again, that's already existing developed area. We're not removing any trees. It's already developed, so it's going to remain developed. It's about over 100 feet from the nearest structure in terms of buffering. And at any time, I did request some waivers, so at any time you want to discuss those, I'd be fine to discuss those at your convenience. But I think that's about it, with the exception of, yes, so the primary goal from the association from day one is to find a spot for this new pickleball court, as the association already provides that as a use. So it's not a new use, so it's already, they already, do pickleball court there. But basically, there weren't many options. We couldn't go into the shoreline zone because we already exceeded the non-vegetated surface coverage, right? So we couldn't go into we couldn't go closer to the resource because we already exceeded 20%. because 20% is the max non-vegetated surface coverage that you can have. Obviously, we have that. That's grandfathered, but again, we're decreasing shoreline zoning coverage from 26 to 25%, plus or minus. We did look into, I did map the property to the northwest, and obviously, we would have had to fill wetlands to cross that to put in a pickleball court. So, again, the GRBA kept in mind, environmental sensitive topics such as wetland filling, and then just the functionality of the property when they made this decision. And I think that's about it.
Okay.
Any questions so far before I introduce Tara?
Oh, what
The
what
president?
about the shed you're gonna remove?
Yep.
What's the impact on that?
That is 220 square feet, right? Yep, Tara confirmed that.
But I mean, then do you have something stored in there that you have to accommodate somewhere else?
I think it's a large home for mice, quite frankly.
Oh, okay.
At this point, so we're not worried about.
So
right.
we need to make
You
sure
have
that
to
we
be at
speak to the microphones.
microphone if
Yep.
you talk.
Okay,
We have a transcriptor for
all right.
minutes.
Should I repeat that?
Yes, thank
Is
you.
it, I don't know that it's appropriate to
Identify
say.
yourself, please.
Oh, hello, I'm Tara Gregorio, volunteer president of the Goose Rocks Beach Association. And thank you for the question. That shed is, quite frankly, a home for mice at this point, and we will be happy to see it leave. We don't use it for anything more than lost tennis rackets and other things that we will be donating and finding new homes for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sure.
Can I ask a question, Tom?
Yeah, please.
Yep.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. We hear you.
Am I not loud enough?
No, you're fine.
He is. You're loud enough.
You're good.
Thank you. I just, a couple of things. The first one is just sort of, why are we here? I think it's twofold, and I just want agreement on this. One is because there's activity in a shoreland zone area, and that would come before the board. But the other is that this is a conditional use. Am I correct? This is a club in the Goose Rocks zone.
Yes.
Okay, so that would require it to come before the board as well. I want to start by questioning, Chris, your statement that says that coverage in the Goose Rock zone is limited to buildings only. Oh, before I do that though, just make sure we're on the same page. Chris, when we talk about this lot, this lot is entirely in the Goose Rock zone, every bit of it. And a portion of it has the shoreland zone overlay, right? It's not
Correct.
divided into two pieces. It's one piece.
Correct.
And a part of it has a certain additional restriction. And we'll get back to that when we start talking about percentages, just to make sure that. Sorry about that, guys. That was a mistake on my part here. Apologies. So Chris, you said that out of the memo here, lot coverage in the Goose Rock zone is limited to buildings only. And I guess I'm questioning that. Lot coverage is said to be the percentage of the lot that's covered by structures, not buildings. And structures are in turn defined to be, I'll read it. Anything built for the support, shelter, or enclosure of persons, animals, goods, or property of any kind, together with anything constructed or erected with a fixed location, above, below, or upon the surface of the ground or water. So I read that to say that the existing tennis courts are structures, and the proposed pickleball court is a structure.
So Ed, I'll interject a little bit. It is the code and planning staff's interpretation of that definition that those types of a foundation, so if like for pickleball court, those are not considered structures. And we've never counted them as structures in prior calculations.
Oh, that's different than my recollection, Galen. Okay. So you would say that if you could pave that entire lot and it would still be outside of the shoreline zone and it would be compliant, there's no need for any not impervious surface.
There,
could totally cover it.
that is a definition difference between the shoreline zoning, which you've correctly cited as impervious surface, versus a structural coverage for the lot coverage definition. Yes.
So with the Goose Rocks area in particular being quite sensitive to runoff and the problems we've had lately, it seems like we want to be overly careful, or certainly careful as we should be, to make sure we're not adding to runoff. I guess I'm having a hard time saying that that's. What is the purpose then of the definition, if you're interpreting it differently, to say anything constructed with a fixed location on the surface of the ground or water? Isn't the tennis court constructed?
The tennis court is an impervious surface, but it's not sheltering or
Persons,
being used
exactly.
for any of those types of uses that are defined in the structure definition.
Yeah.
So
No, that's the first part of a structure definition.
Right,
certainly,
doesn't meet that.
certainly, if the planning board, and again, this came up last night at Growth Planning Committee, if we'd like to look at that definition and maybe change it because of stormwater concerns, that's something we can discuss at a future date. But as of now, that is the code enforcement staff's interpretation of those definitions.
Well, you know, I'm with Ed there because I had that problem. I was looking and I see here lot coverage, you know, the percentage of the lot covered by structures within the shoreland zone. Lot coverage shall include driveways, parking lots, and other non-vegetated surfaces.
Yep, and so he's taking that into consideration.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then I go to structure, and again, you know, anything built for support, shelter, enclosure of persons, okay,
It's not that, right?
or property of any kind with anything constructed or erected with a fixed location above, below, or upon the surface. I read the same definition that Ed did, and I had some questions about that. It doesn't say buildings. It's not restricted to buildings. You know, it could be, if you're talking about enclosure of animals, it could be a yard that's concrete with a fence around it. And there's no difference really between that and a tennis court.
Right.
Yeah, but it does say shelter of persons, so that's where I think it's implied, where the shoreline zoning definition includes everything else.
Well, no, it says
No
support.
review.
Right, that's your prerogative, and certainly we can discuss it again, but again, the code enforcement officer and I discussed this at length, and I guess there's been prior applications as well that this has been discussed in the past.
Yeah.
Well, think about it, Galen. Galen,
Have we had any
we-
legal opinion in there?
I'm not sure as of recent.
if we were to go that way, and perhaps we have in the past, I think you're saying that it's legitimate to entirely cover the non-shoreland zone portion of the lot that with, you know, with a patio, or there's no requirement at all for non-impervious surface.
So in this case, what they're asking is to increase coverage by 30 by 32. If we go with the other definition, right? So if we go with that definition, the other one that it would be considered, what's the impact?
What other one, Mike?
The one that you are proposing that it is, if we deviate, if we say that we've increased the impervious area 30 by 32,
Right.
what is the additional requirement or waiver or what they would be seeking to be able to move this forward?
I think if under that interpretation, you're already non-conforming. You're already well over 20% coverage with the existing tennis courts, and this would be making it more non-compliant. I didn't do the math, but I think you've got a grandfathered situation where you've got lot coverage. If you allow that that's a structure, that tennis courts are structures, then I think you've already got a problem. It's non-conforming, but that is what it is.
So if
Now
you,
we're going to increase that. And if I understand, Chris, your position is you could add more courts, right? To any place that isn't got a court right now because it's in the Goose Rock zone. And I have a problem with
Tara, do you
that.
want to talk about that? I mean, you're not proposing.
Thank you. We are not proposing to add any other courts tonight or in the future. I can't speak to future generations or on behalf of future boards of directors, but I can assure you that we are asking for one court. It is true that we have another parcel of land that we could be talking about some type of building over in that part of, again, the property, but that is not what we're discussing this evening, partly because, and you asked a great question about why are we here? And I know you all have a tremendous responsibility to be very thoughtful in your approvals of these applications. And I just sit in awe of all that you are need to be expert in, and certainly Chris's presentation. My background is in health policy, so this is somewhat French to me, but I will say to you that there is a practical standpoint of this, which Goose Rock Beach Association is a long-standing community, not-for-profit organization that seeks to provide services to our community. We have a very large and growing membership, and we have demands, quite frankly, to grow our services. And so, yes, we have 4 tennis courts on the property right now, on that first property that you all have in front of you. We have converted one of those courts, Court 4, to 2 pickleball lines, sort of what you already see in the town, where we have a hybrid tennis pickleball. But the demand for pickleball is great. Yet our tennis members say, I don't want any more lines on my tennis courts. And so we tried to be very thoughtful. And so with Chris's guidance and wonderful mapping, environmental, try to have the least impact as possible and disruption to our vital environment and services. So, but there is another concern that we tried to address in positioning this court, which is neighbors. We want to be very respectful of our neighbors. And I'm sure through this process you will hear from neighbors who love this plan and others who have concerns, because despite the fact that pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in the country, that it has wonderful benefits for health and intergenerational play, which is exactly what we at GRBA want to do, is to build community. We do know that there are some serious concerns that we want to address in relative to noise. And I would dare say, and I know you all are very smart, you read the newspapers, you know what's going on, this is plaguing every community. How do we balance the growth versus the sound and neighbor concerns? And I think that we have an opportunity working with all of you to really put forth a best practice proposal that says we are going to invest not just in the concrete or asphalt to build a court.
Excuse me.
Yes.
But you're nowhere near.
Where I need, near this or near
We're
topic?
discussing our
Okay,
ordinances. And you're
You have to-
discussing your wonderful organization. And,
Yeah,
you know.
you have to understand that the planning board is here to enforce the land use ordinance. And we have certain rules and regulation. And it doesn't matter how wonderful it is or how many people you have wanting to use a pickleball court, we have to make sure that the guidelines are followed, the legal guidelines. So what you're saying is not relevant at this point.
Thank you. And I
It
don't
may
mean,
become relevant when we look at other factors in here. But again, we're here only to apply the land use ordinance and the rules and regulations that are laid out for us. those come from the people of the town of Kennebunkport, and they have voted them in. And we are not allowed to go outside certain rules. That's what we're trying to get at here.
So to be more direct, we have no intention of building another court. I'm sorry, I thought he was asking in the atmospheric sense what brought us here. So thank you for that tutorial, I appreciate that. So I'll leave it to the expert.
So again, and
Thank
what
you,
planning
Tara.
staff will advise you on is it's a very slippery slope if we count these surfaces as structures. I would make the argument as well, then parking lots are considered structures. And that's a slippery slope that you're going down in this determination. Again, we can clarify this, I think, in future land use ordinances. I think it's something that's being discussed at growth planning.
I think it's something that needs to be clarified.
Right.
And you might want to talk to Amy a little bit about how the term structure is applied. We might look at, for example, the MMA before we even do that, because it's free advice, and ask how it is normally applied.
Galen, can I add to that? I agree with Nina. But with respect to parking lots and driveways, which are kind of singled out in the shoreland zone additional burden, I would offer that under the broad definition that I read into what a structure is, that a paved driveway is a structure and a paved parking lot is a structure. But I think it's saying that in the shoreland zone, even if it's not paved, a driveway and a parking lot are to be counted against you. So I think that's the addition, but I think the broadest definition here of structure says that if it's constructed by man and it lays on top of the surface, it's a fixed location, it's a structure.
We have 3 hands raised in Zoom. One is George Lichty, the other is Arthur Cassava, who I believe is an appellant.
We're not in a public hearing.
George is the member.
Oh, George is,
George is a member of the board, and I
So is
believe
Arthur.
is an appellant.
No, Arthur's a member of the board,
What board?
our board.
No.
Oh, okay.
So I will promote George.
And there he is.
There. Set. Hello, everybody. There have been instances, I know, where we have had to treat driveways as impervious surfaces, whether they're paved or not. The one over by the Cape Arundel restaurant, the Arundel Wharf restaurant, there was that driveway, remember? It was gravel, but it's treated as an impervious surface, whether it's paved or not. That was that instance.
But that was in the shoreland zone, correct, George?
Yes.
Yes, and so that would be considered impervious surface and non-vegetative surface in the definition of the land use ordinance.
actually, that's the riverfront, I think.
That's still in shoreline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Special.
So I think we really need to try to resolve this or make a decision one way or another. Maybe give it some thought. But, I mean, I the same question I raised in my mind when I took a look at this. So, I have some other questions too, but Ed, do you have other questions?
No, I just want to close by saying I agree with Galen that it's a slippery slope, but I think it goes in both directions. If we say that basically nothing except a raised structure is to be counted against lot coverage in a non-shoreland zone, I think we're starting to set the stage for being able to pave paradise and say that it's acceptable to our land ordinance. And I don't think that's the intent.
I don't think it's a good idea for Goose Rocks Beach either, where they're having so much flooding.
I would say it's a little unfair to the previous projects that you've approved, where where it was interpreted the way that Galen was talking about.
Yeah, I'm
And
not-
now
I'm
we're
not
being held
familiar with those.
accountable for this interpretation when that's the way that's been interpreted. So, I mean, what about all the other projects that have been approved with the current interpretation?
I think those, that'd be worth
Seems a
looking
little
at, Chris.
unfair.
Do we know what those are?
Again, I'm fairly new, so you all know which applications you had, but
And I've only been on the board 5 years, so it hasn't come up.
It hasn't come up in this situation. I think it's certain non-conforming situations, house lots and so forth. We have gone over things like that, but there are different standards under Section 8. So I don't remember a particular instance.
okay.
What about Cape Porpoise rebuilding the pier? The Fisherman's Co-op?
It hasn't come before us, George. I'm not familiar with it.
Well,
Well, it's already paved.
Oh,
Never
the
mind, it was
pier,
It was
you're
paved.
already-
saying?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
paved. It
it
was
was
paved,
already
never mind.
paved, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we
didn't
didn't
change.
increase the impervious area there,
No.
as I recall.
no, that's correct.
So I did have a couple of thoughts. So presumably the court's gonna be made from reinforced concrete or asphalt, and either of those solutions, in my view, would be a structure. I mean, what would happen if you had a clay, like there's clay tennis courts, do they have any clay pickleball courts? And would that make any difference? It would be compacted soil, still be impervious, but it wouldn't be quite the same as reinforced concrete, or I guess you'll do asphalt, I don't know.
It would still be a non-vegetated surface.
Non-vegetated surface, yes.
But that's not keep in mind, non-vegetated surface, that's not included in, outside the shoreline zone. The shoreline zone definition for non-vegetated surface specifically says, lists all those things. So that's why.
I agree, Chris. You're right. It's really as simple as saying anything, I'll read it again, anything constructed with a fixed location on the surface of the ground.
So that would even apply to compacted soil, like clay.
Well, is the tennis court constructed?
Yeah, right.
What is it constructed of? That's a different question, but
Yeah. Gotcha, okay. So really the issue is amount of impervious area. I guess that's the constraint here.
that's what we're guessing the intent is.
Yeah. So before you go on though, so I'm so glad to see you're gonna remove that shed, right? That's gonna reduce the amount of increase in the impervious area.
In the shoreline zone, yeah.
But, okay, I'm just sort of guessing here, right? So is there really a big demand for the half-court basketball area? Do you want to just deconstruct that and, salvage that area? Return that to pervious zone?
We are committed to working with the board on finding a solution. So if that is one, then yes.
Well, that'd be a simple solution.
Yeah.
Deconstruct the basketball court and just take that area and put it on your pickleball court.
Thank you for that.
Are we still waiting? Is that a definite? Because I thought the town planner has already given the board his interpretation of what structure is outside the shoreline zone, but now you're asking for.
But your court is
Removal
an
of-
impervious surface, which is also defined
Yeah.
in here. And you're increasing the impervious surface by
Yeah.
1%, or whatever, 1.1.
So,
I think what we're asking though is if you just want to reconsider your proposal to see if you could sidestep the whole issue, deconstruct the remaining half basketball court and take that area and recast it up on your pickleball court. That's all we're saying. Do you want to, that would just I think that would just avoid the whole issue, right?
And remove the
And, well, of course, you're gonna
Or,
remove the
or
shed.
are there additional areas that could be removed
Yeah.
that would make up the difference from the shed? Or are there other areas that can be converted from current pervious or structure definition to fill up that additional area? So is there anything that could be reclaimed as pervious or vegetative that you've got either as a sidewalk, a patio area, or something else?
And are your tennis courts, do they have to be that large? You've got the play areas. Can you shave off a little bit of the tennis courts, or are you going to get a lot of flack about that? You know, some people, they have tennis courts and they just put up fences around them and they don't
that-
have as much area.
I think that, again, the suggestion about relooking at our basketball court is a really good one. The other that we've discussed are walkways. We have, I don't know the picture in front of you here, but we have walkways right here and right here that we could certainly rearrange to be something different. But I really do appreciate the obvious suggestion here that we would want to take back to our board and our membership in regards to the existing basketball
Well,
court.
they're just ideas that you can take back and take a look at.
Thank you.
Despite the fact that, you know, the planning director has given you some guidance, we're looking at the actual code and regulations, and it's up to the planning board to interpret that. So we may have a further discussion about that or get some information about that and come back to you with it as well. But you can take back to yourselves, you know, see how you can maybe adjust things and make it work.
So I'd like to make a correction. The code enforcement officer does the interpretation of the land use ordinance.
Okay, I'm sorry, code enforcement officer.
Correct. We're giving you our interpretation of the land use ordinance. We can disagree about that.
Yes,
However, this is what the code enforcement officer has said is the definition.
okay.
I can certainly go back and talk for future amendments, like maybe this needs to be looked at for possibly advising, but the planning board, on the day-to-day operations, the code enforcement officer has to do interpretations of what a plan's coming before you. That's something that's delegated, the authority-wise, from the planning board to the code enforcement officer.
Okay. But if the planning board is having a problem with that interpretation, I think we need to go back internally and work that out.
You can certainly, that's your prerogative to table applications, you can have that discussion, but
Yeah,
I don't see how that's fair when there's other projects. I mean, what about all the residential lots that are in the Goose Rock zone right behind here, like right here? And again, I'm not trying to kick up a stink here, but, you know, what about all these residential lots? Are they also now subject to the same standards that you're putting this project to, if you indeed not follow the code enforcement guidance? I mean, you know,
well, I'm not sure we followed that particular guidance in the past. I cannot remember an application where we did that, to be honest. And we've had lots of
Thanks for the comment.
applications, and we have some coming up that are in the Goose Rocks Beach area. And we certainly look at those. Most of them involve non-conforming lots, and so we look at them very carefully. We'll try to find a solution, as you try to find a solution for this.
so can I get clarity on your guidance regarding removing some of the impervious? Is your guidance a 1-to-1 at this point? Just so that when Tara goes back to the rest of her board members, that we can have a little.
Yes, it's to keep it the same.
Okay, so basically 30 by 32 is what you're looking for, reduction in what you say is impervious.
Yes.
Any impervious,
Yes.
not vegetated surface?
Chris, let me try.
Okay.
Basically,
fair if
if you calculate now what the % lot coverage is of the entire lot, forget about whether it's overlaid by the shoreland zone or not,
Yeah.
and you count all of the items that are impervious as being scored against you, you come up with what that is. I would like to not see that figure go up, and I would say that you've met the intent and the definition here of whether it's called structure or not. As long as that overall, and I think that you're going to find that you're over 20% of lot coverage under that definition, but whatever it turns out to be, 35, 40%, don't go over that.
Yeah, so as long as you end up with no greater impact than you currently have, you're okay. So it is almost a 1-to-1 trade
Right.
of what you would have, of you can take this away and gain that much more area for the new pickleball court. The structure, if that's removed and where the structure was, if that's returned, then that would count. I think that's 20 by 11.
Yeah.
So that's a fair chunk of it. If there's some walkways you can take out or things like that, or any pavement that's not currently being used, that's all fair game.
Okay, so the shed counts.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So you're giving us
Sure.
credit for the entire property for
Sure.
removal, okay.
That's why I was trying to make that point,
All right.
Chris, is really look at that Goose Rock zone as the entire property.
Yeah.
Anything you take out of the shoreland zone, so much the better. You get bonus points for that, of goodwill at least.
Yeah.
But that can be used anywhere.
Yeah.
Would you consider getting credit for this swing set, right?
Is that what that
That's a
is?
non-vegetated surface.
It's not identified. I was gonna ask you about that. That's a swing set?
Well, yeah, see how it's just a small, very small portion inside the shoreland zone?
Yeah.
It's a swing set, but it's non-vegetated surface.
There you go.
Take it out.
So
Yeah.
could we,
Yeah.
so that should take care of it easily for the,
Yeah.
if for you guys to consider it, of course. Yeah.
So Chris had been a great guide to us, because we did do this arithmetic. And removal of 2 sheds was 280. The walkways was 410, which, just to let you know, left us with 78 square feet to find. And we had discussed taking away the wood chips by the playground as a possible solution. So we have done this, and so thank you again for your patience. But it is possible by removing those surfaces as you're suggesting.
Good.
Yeah, we did that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you want to hear anything about the mitigation measures for the court? Arthur is on via Zoom. He's one of the board, GRBA board members.
I have a lot of questions, but that would help if you want to go ahead with that. That might even answer some.
So I should allow him to speak?
Yep.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes?
Thank you. My name is Arthur Cassavant, 5 Kings Lane, Goose Rock Beach. As a parenthetical, I happen to be a member of a planning and zoning board in another community. We used some of that background to develop our proposal here. A couple of things that I would like to pick up on what Tara just said. And in our early work with Chris, we spent a lot of time trying to find a reduction approach of impervious surface that would be a 1-for-1 trade-off. We also tried to spend a lot of time making sure we were getting town planner guidance, so we would be in good shape here. What we came up with was the possibility of even giving back some of the impervious driveway if necessary, while balancing the community needs. The idea of removing the soft surface which surrounds the play set right now might be one that would buy us a couple of feet of coverage to get to the 1-for-1, which we recognize is important. But we also want to make sure we maintain safety for all of the children. We even went so far as to look at whether there were any structural modifications we could make to our community house in terms of board. stairways or access ways, but because we have upgraded for ADA, we have been able to, we eliminated those as possibilities. In the development of the court structure, we did reach out to communities nearby and neighbors. We invited neighbors to our board meetings multiple times to get their input. And we tried to come up with best practices for a pickleball court. Part of the reason for the location of the court is that it is as far as it could be in its proposed location behind the community house in a way that would minimize noise impact. We have proposed using absolutely controlled hours, planting vegetation to remove noise, and also to limit play to only certified members, and to do so with the best technology available. We are also recommending that there be no lighting on the court to ensure that there never be any use of the court at night. And our goal in doing all of these things was to come up with a court which minimized impact on water flow, put the court in the space which is least obvious to neighbors, provides the best protection against noise, and hopefully works with the contour of the existing property to have little or no impact on water flow in this area. I'll be glad to accept any questions. I know you folks have the written PowerPoint which highlights these things, and so I won't go through them again. But if there are questions about how we came to those suggestions, we're glad, obviously, to deal with them.
Okay. Where should we head at this point?
Well, I have some questions. I want to go back to basics. This is a community building and it's community use. And the definition of a community building basically is that the town puts in some money to it, do they? Or it's a quasi a governmental situation.
I'd be glad to answer that as the treasurer of the organization.
Good.
We get no funding from any municipality. We have been a provider of services. For example, a number of years ago, when the Kennebunkport high school tennis courts were being resurfaced, we volunteered for our courts to be used by the community for the town. We are a taxpayer on both of our properties, as well as a third property. We happen to own the access way to Goose Rocks Beach at Jeffries Way, and we pay for and provide for all of those. There is no funding from Kennebunkport as a town.
Okay, so you're a quasi-public organization and you're a nonprofit, right?
That's correct.
Okay, are you incorporated in any way or an LLC?
We're a 501c3, I believe, and are registered with the Secretary of State in Maine.
Okay, in that case, I think you need to just update the application to indicate that, and you'll need a certificate of good standing from the state of Maine. You don't have to send in a whole new application, just make sure that the office gets that certificate of good standing and just cross the box there for that. So I just wanted to make sure, because a community building and community use are a conditional use in the Goose Rocks Beach area, I just wanted to make sure that you met those qualifications. So you do, that's not a problem.
Nina, can I just clarify real quick on that? You need the certificate, and do you need anything else? Do you need a narrative, or is that enough for that topic?
No, I don't need a narrative.
Okay.
We don't need a narrative, but you haven't checked the box for that you're a corporation in your 501c3 corporation. So the certificate is just downloaded from the Secretary of State, and it's just one page. You just want to put it in the application.
We just renewed yesterday, by the way, our certification for this year,
Okay.
and we're up to date.
Okay, but you need
Yeah,
good
no, I get it,
standing.
just so
the
the
state
board
has
knows.
to say you're in good standing, and as long as you paid your money, they will. Okay. Did you say you don't need any permits? Because I thought I saw somewhere in here you were getting an MDEP permit.
No, we don't need any state permits
Okay,
because we're not impacting a wetland and we're not within 75 feet of the coastal wetland, which is the only adjacency jurisdiction that the DEP has.
okay. The waivers that you want, can I just go through them and just
Sure.
check through some things?
Yeah.
I think one is the physical features, including a soil survey. You want a waiver for doing a full soil survey?
Please.
Yes, okay. And you don't need contours labeled with elevations. Obviously, this is pretty flat to begin
Right.
with.
Okay, thank you.
But the one with no new parking spaces, you're telling me that you're going to increase the use. Are you going to, and one of the things we have to look at is, do you have enough parking spaces for people in your parking lot so that you're not going out on the street where I assume there's no parking and people aren't going to obstruct traffic? And there's no numbering or dimensions of spaces now from what I read from your application. But if you look at the land use ordinance, section 6914, it says that parking for community use is not exempt from dimensional or other parking requirements, except for things like backing up and so forth. They're supposed to be 10 by 20 spaces. So one of the things you may look at doing is marking those. I assume you're not paved there in the parking lot?
It's just gravel, right? Is it paved?
Oh,
Okay.
you're paved?
No, it's a paved surface.
Sorry.
Okay, then it's very easy to mark spaces with lines and things like that. So I think maybe as a condition, because you're going to have an increase in use, you want to get those spaces marked properly. Okay, whichever way you want to mark them.
So that'll be in your condition to do post-approval? That'll be for them to do post-approval?
Well, if the planning board decides,
Okay,
Yeah.
then that will be a condition,
okay.
possibly. Okay. And I noticed that under 10 here, on the land use ordinance, there's a requirement of curbs, bumpers, and question, is it applicable? You don't seem to ask for a waiver for that, but I think you probably should.
Yep, please.
Okay. Landscaping buffering plan, what I would like to see is to make sure there's no erosion while you're doing construction, something that describes how you're going to construct the pickleball court.
Erosion in said plan and construction plan narrative? Does that sound good?
Yeah, I don't think it has to be the formal type of construction plan where you show all the buffering and you show, where you're going to put black plastic or whatever they use today to keep down erosion, but something that indicates, because you're very close to shoreland zoning there.
Yeah.
That soil is not going into
Yeah,
water.
so
You're not
perimeter
having-
erosion control,
Yeah,
okay,
some sort of erosion control.
yeah.
Clearly, you said there's no lighting, so you've asked for a waiver there. Signage, you've asked for a waiver there, there are not going to be any signs, and there's no floor area, so you asked for a waiver there. Okay. It's not listed for a waiver under 11, but water lines and stormwater, septic, and so forth maybe should be shown on the map.
We are showing an
Yeah.
approximate area of our effluent line from the pump station.
Which is,
There's the pump station, there's the effluent line to the leach field.
where are you?
That's a septic effluent line
And
pump
that's the
station.
pump station.
Yeah, tank.
Okay, I see that one, but I didn't know that.
So I think I was asking for a partial waiver there, because I thought I was showing the septic areas, but we were just looking for a waiver for stormwater, and
Okay,
so.
okay. And that's all that I had. I just wanted to go through those. Tom?
Thank you.
Okay. Larry, do you have anything? More?
Well, for me, my primary interest would be just to show the no increase in impervious area.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have anything, Scott?
You may find that you don't have to remove the sidewalks. I mean, it looks pretty close.
Yeah,
Maybe not have to.
right. Because you're giving us credit for the sheds,
yeah.
that's 280?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so 30 by,
And the swings.
okay.
Yeah, if you just want to adjust, yeah.
Any other comments from planning board?
Yeah, Tom, this is Ed again. Just not to quibble, but I just want to be careful about, we're really talking about what is the current impervious area, and I don't think we have an accurate figure on that at this point, but whatever that is, we don't want that to increase. And I worry that saying, yeah, take the wood chips away from under the swing set, I can't see how that's a swinger. That's not impervious. It may be non-vegetative, but it's not impervious, and I don't think that's an equal trade to say we're gonna do something that may in fact affect safety in the interests of adding another pickleball court. So let's just be careful there and really take the things that are hardscape now and make sure that figure doesn't go up.
It's what meets the definition that we were applying.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you, Mike.
So apples to apples.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah, but we need 960 square feet by your request, so that's all, that is
I
a
don't think the
lot.
wood chips are constructed, so that's all.
No, I'm
That's
just
all.
saying the task is to find 960 square feet of reduction, because
Okay.
the new pickleball, the new pickleball court, half of it's existing.
Yeah.
The new half is 30 by 32, so 960. 900,000. So that's why we're hoping to get credit for the swing set area.
Can I just make one other comment on the PowerPoint charts at the end? And I think some of this is going to come up as we go forward, but some of the things that are in here are soft, is the word I want to use. We'll purchase sound deadening paddles and recommend that players use them. That doesn't seem like a major commitment, and it doesn't seem like if I'm a neighbor, I might be concerned with that. So I just want to mention that in the course of discussion, it will likely come up that depending on what the neighbors, whether they weigh in here or not, that in the interest of keeping the peace, you may have to enforce using that specialized equipment.
Okay.
So there's a few others like that, but that's the one that jumps out at me. I think, the other one was, we'll continue to talk and listen to neighbors. And of course you will, but what concern is that addressing? I'm anticipating, again, that there may be a concern that's raised in the future. What's the mechanism for dealing with that? Do you have a regular forum and you'll put it as an agenda item and that'll be available for scrutiny, and something a little more enforceable, I guess, is what I'd be looking for there. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have, I don't think we can call this complete yet. We're gonna look at them to reduce by 32 by 32.
Yeah, I think we need to see I think we need to see a plan that shows the impervious and the reduction.
So, also, before we go any further, also, Ed's comment about the noise level is kind of interesting to me. The land use ordinance has some rules about noise levels and times of day when the various sound pressures can be, various sound pressures are allowed during morning and then different ones at night. So you may want to consider what the maximum noise level is going to be during the pickleball game. And then that could affect the hours that the court's open, is where I'm going with
Is
this.
that decibels?
Decibel. the land use ordinance has some good guidance on sound pressures. I forget what the section is, but it's in there. So just take a look at that before you finalize your plan.
Okay.
So I guess.
Thank you.
At this point, the board would like to see some modifications to
Yeah.
square footage and of impervious.
Certificate of good
And the
standing.
certificate of good standing.
And I think you need to look at parking spaces.
So,
Do you need us to estimate spaces now, or is that for the condition that we
if you're not,
illustrate them out in the,
if you're
in
not
the
planning
ground?
to increase the number,
Okay.
Then it could just be a condition. Okay.
okay.
I think, Nina, you said it best earlier. We really are saying we're doing this because there's an increased demand. It's going to be basically increasing the use of this conditional use in Goose Rock Zone, and we want to look at least how many spaces are there now. It would be good to have an accounting of that.
Yeah.
So just very quickly, because it's getting late.
Microphone.
Sorry, I'm short. I just want to thank you all for this discussion and your wisdom. And I do want to assure Ed in particular and all of you that for me as president of this association, the center of this has in fact been our neighbors. And I have spent a tremendous amount of time working with them and will continue to. So please know that noise mitigation, and I did learn from Attorney Parkinson that we can in fact mandate that we have the sound deafening. He taught me a lot about that. So thank you for these comments, and I think everything that you have shared with us is very actionable on our part, so I just really want to express my gratitude. And sorry for my ignorance in the process of the planning board, but I appreciate your patience. And all of you in the audience, too. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Tara.
we appreciate having people that care about these things too, so thank
Yeah.
you for coming.
Yes.
But
Thank
I
you.
think we need to
To continue the.
continue the
Initial
initial review, and you can come back in
2 weeks.
2 weeks with the revisions.
Is that okay still? Just one addition. Hi, my name is John Downey. I'm 16 Prescott Drive, right near the community house.
If you're trying to make a comment as an abutter, you cannot right now. It
That's-
has to wait for a public
We're
hearing.
not having the public hearing today.
Yeah.
No, it's not as an abutter. I'm a member of the board, and it's just as, Nina, it's just to address one of the items that you brought up, which is the parking. And we talked about the growth of the sport, et cetera. I just wanted to say the primary increase will be bicycles and pedestrian walks towards the community house. Much of this is local community use, so you may see more bicycles than cars. You actually could address it by going there, and on an afternoon when they're playing, you won't see an extra 10 cars, you might see an extra 10 bikes.
That's fine.
So I
but
just
we-
wanted- I
but
wanted you to know
because
it's
there'll
not a-
be increased use, we still do have to look at parking.
Yeah, I just wanted to be aware, it's primarily community use, kids and bikes and adults walking.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess we should just
Motion.
take a motion to
I'll make a motion to continue the initial review to 2 weeks from now.
I'll second that.
Approve?
approve.
Approve.
Approved. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll see you next time. All right, that brings us to item 240302, 438 Kings Highway. And that's Christy Kenny, agent. Okay.
Can you hear me okay? Does that sound okay?
Hold it, it's better, it seems.
Hold it close.
little
Just take it off of
Short
the
too.
thing and hold it, yeah.
I'm Christy Kenny from KW Architects. I'm here with Maura Perrier and Louise Hurlbert, representing the owner. Louise is here in support of the project. We are proposing an addition of a 2-car garage to 438 Kings Highway. It's an additional, the garage itself is 728 square feet. The total lot coverage is including impervious and structures, 25.7%. We are proposing zero change in the total lot coverage. 25.7 will be after the garage is constructed. We will be under the 20% building lot coverage, which is 18.6 when we're finished. Galen has written out a list of comments, and I can review a few of these comments. We received the DEP approval on Monday this week, which I haven't received the paper format, but I did send Galen a clip of the approval that was completed on Monday. One of the items was this asking for the scale of the plan to change from 1 to 30 to 1 to 20. And I'm going to ask if for a waiver. Right now, the plans are all at 1 to 30. The lot is long and skinny, and it fits on the sheet. If you require 1 to 20, I can go back and make that change in the plans. We are requesting to waive the topography. The other comment was to add the water, sewer, and utilities on the plans, which I've already been in touch with Livingston Hughes to add that to our survey. And then the other comment is to show the light fixtures, that any light fixtures we're proposing will meet the cutoff and dark sky criteria, which I do not have a light fixture with me now, but I can submit an approved light fixture. I think that is all of the comments that I have. We are happy to take any comments from the board.
Larry, have you comments on this?
Well, yeah, thanks for this. So, I did have a couple of comments. So I noticed on your R301.2.4, the floodplain, you say the property's outside of the floodplain, but could you specify the map that you're referring to? Because the current legally binding maps are the 1986 firm maps, but of course there's the 2017 FEMA maps, which are going to soon be the Kennebunkport FEMA maps for one day, and then we're going to have the 2024 Kennebunkport version. So I think it'd be very useful in that R301.2.4 if you specify what maps you're referring to say the property is out of the floodplain.
If you look at the survey that was submitted, the floodplain is on portions of the lot.
Yeah, but
Divides the lot.
according to which maps? See, that's my point.
Oh, okay, I
Which
can
which
definitely
map
get
are you?
that.
Which map? Anyway, you don't have to answer that right now. I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
I can add that.
Verify which map is your reference. And then I noticed your reference to glazing, but I'm pretty sure Nina's going to mention the need to avoid bird strikes. You know, there's some provisions for minimizing bird damage. And then also on your R301.6, you refer to snow load. But in this location, you know, the wind load could also be quite important. You know, the 100-year storm is going to be 120-mile-an-hour winds or something, but that's my interpretation. Could you verify what the local code requires for wind speed and then specify it? It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 miles an hour, I think, but that could impose a significant load on your building. I think if you take a look at it, anyway.
I have a question about that. Are those performance standards that you're referencing, or are those?
No, those
are
are
building code.
those are building
So we'll
code.
address that during the building permit
Okay,
process.
but the point is that it could affect the design, and it could affect what is proposed here. So I think it's important at this point, Galen. So I'm just adding the, you know, consideration of these things in your final documentation. And then, oh, that's more or less it. Thank you.
Nina?
I just had a few questions. I understood that this is not an accessory apartment you have up above.
No, and I was quick to respond back to Galen that there's no intent for this to be an accessory apartment.
Okay.
And we are more than happy to have that in the finding of facts.
Yeah, I think it should be because it would be
Right.
improper.
Exactly,
Under the
yes.
LUO, you don't have the shoreline frontage to begin with,
Correct.
so that's a condition. Okay.
And I did send an updated memo with potential
I
condition
saw
language
that.
that you can use.
I saw that, but I just wanted to make sure. Sewer and water lines and utility, can they be indicated on the map?
Yes, I'm going to have Livingston Hughes add them to the survey.
Okay. A construction erosion plan of some sort?
We can add that to the site plan.
Yeah, we would like to see that, some sort of buffering or landscaping plan, because you're so close to the shoreline, you don't want erosion running into the Batson River or somewhere like that. And yes, I do have a very strong feelings about windows, especially in areas where there's a lot of bird activity, which you're in, the whole Goose Rocks Beach, that there be at least screens on windows or some sort of mitigation and overhangs. There is a lot of information now out on the web, architectural, trying to think where they are. I could find some sites, but I'm sure that you can. There are architectural designs for mitigation of birds crashing into windows, bird strikes. It's a very serious problem. Okay. And I had no other questions on that.
Okay.
So,
Ed or Mike or
Yeah.
anything?
Yes, please. This is Ed. I just want to, can you help me clarify in the package on sheet 1, which is a very nice drawing. You've got an inset box with lot coverage, and you've shown an itemized list of before and after. I just want to make sure that we're talking about the lot coverage within the shoreland zone overlay. Is that correct?
Yes, it's called out that the lot coverage is the total lot area within the shoreline zone.
And there's no change in the area that's outside of the shoreland zone, is that correct?
No, that's all, we're not changing anything outside the shoreline zone. The shoreline zone is about 90% of the lot.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense. That's really the only comment and question I had. Thank you very much. There's a
Welcome.
nice depiction.
Thank you.
Very clear.
Mike or George?
George is all set.
Okay,
Mike here, no, I'm good.
okay,
I might have one more comment.
feel free.
Your depiction shows a very nice lawn there, but it's best not to have very nice lawns in the site where you are. You're between the Batson River and the shoreland, and there should never be any use of fertilizers or pesticides there. They will go right into that river, and they will go right into the shoreland. The best thing you can do there to help prevent flooding, by the way, is to plant trees. And the Shade Tree Committee, John Ripton, who is the head, can always give guidance on that. And we're happy to help. I'm also on that committee. Trees can take up thousands and thousands of gallons of water, even, when you're flooding and everything. They will help to sequester that water, and they will hold it, and they will dissipate it through evaporation and transpiration. And the roots will help the water to go down deep into the soil rather than stay on the surface. So if you want to have a lawn, it's best to have trees in that area, because otherwise you're going to have things like sedges coming up instead of grass.
Thank you, and homeowner is here too, so your advice is welcome.
Okay, so you're aware of what we are suggesting, changes in your submission.
Yep.
You can get them prepared for 2 weeks hence,
Yes, I don't see a problem with that.
so
Are we complete?
I think we can call it complete.
I'll make a motion that we find the application complete.
I'll second.
Okay,
Approve.
approved?
Approved.
Approve.
Okay, so in 2 weeks, preferably before that, we get the
Revised
updated, the
package.
updated application, and we'll have a public hearing at that point on the application.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, preferably before, so we can see.
Yeah, we'd like to see it, you
I
know.
think it's getting a surveyor is the hard part. But thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all righty. The third item was moved at the request, so the last item is no Nantum. Okay, item 340304, 293 Goose Rocks Road, in no Nantum. And Tina is here, okay.
Yes.
Well, good evening. Nice to see everybody again. I'm glad we're getting this out of the way before the nasty storm hits us this evening, so thank you so much for taking the time to review the application, which I had submitted. I think I'm coming to you with a sort of a little bit of a different hat on. I'm here as a representative for Helene Lewand, who is the owner of 293 Goose Rocks Road, known as Black Rock Farm. A little bit of a backstory. I'm Tina Hewitt-Gordon. I'm the general manager at the No Nantum Resort. And a few years ago, I had gone to a conference at the Chatham Bars Inn and learned about a program that they had where they were working with a local, that they bought a farm, and they were providing all the vegetables for their gardens, and then they were also working with food pantries and helping with their staff. And I ran to the owner and I said, "Oh my God," she said, "how was that conference?" I said, "It was so wonderful. We have to buy a farm." And she's like, "We have to buy a farm?" I was like, "Okay, well, this is my idea." And so fast forward, enter Helene posting about needing some help out on her farm. And so we developed, and Helene and I have known each other for 100 years. And so we developed a program that she was allowing us to use portions of her farm to be able to grow vegetables. And it became incredibly successful for our team as well as her properties. And so we formed this really great relationship that started out as the No Nantum being able to utilize the farm to grow vegetables, to grow herbs, to grow flowers, which we in turn have been able to provide with our staff. We use some of it for the hotel, but then the rest of it is donated to local food pantries, and it really fills a bucket for us and our love of the environment, sustainability, and I think that our values really match that of the farms when it comes to environmentalism. So that's where we started, and then after the first year, I said, wow, wouldn't this be a really pretty place to have like some events? As you all know, we do big events at the hotel. We looked at Black Rock as an opportunity for us to be able to focus on a smaller event scale. So last year we ended up having 2 events, which we went to the town for, and we got applications for a use. And as you well know, you can only have events every 120 days. And so they were such a great success. They're pre-formed groups, not open to the public, but they were smaller, there was a conference that had a dinner, and then there was a little rehearsal dinner that was at the hotel, at the farm. So our marketing department and our sales team said, we really want to be able, can we do this more often? And said, we talked to Helene about it, and then, of course, spoke with Werner about it when he was still here, and he said, well, the only way that you can do this is if you apply for a restaurant license. And I said, well, I don't want to operate a restaurant. He said, I understand that. He said, but that's all that exists on the books. So we left it alone, and to the fall, into the beginning of the year, our sales team said, I think we can sell this on small group events. said, okay, so I went and I met with Galen. He's been wonderful in helping me because this is a very new process for me, not applying on the non-anthem's behalf, but on someone else's behalf. So fast forward, we have an agreement with Helene to be able to utilize the land for 3 years. We're now in year 2. This would be year 2. And we would like to be able to do some more events out there. These would be very thoughtful events, very on a smaller scale, very farm to table. Our average is going to be 50. I mean, some may be 30, some may be 100, but our average would be, we're not looking for anything large. We're not looking to be putting up anything. We're not proposing to build any structures. She has some beautiful pergolas out there. We want this to be an open air type of an event area for us. We ended up helping reconstruct some of the pergolas that were in disrepair. We just put up some new supports and put some different sailcloth up just to be able to improve what was already there. And in the event of inclement weather, we would be using greenhouses that already exist. So we, a few of the other criteria as I look through the site plan application, or the plan that I had submitted to you, is bathrooms. How are we going to handle bathrooms? We bought what we would call luxury porta potties, if you will. I supplied a photo to you. It actually was a small house that was converted and has its own tanks in the back for catching water and waste. And then we work with A1 Environmental and Wells, who comes and would pump out the system for us. We would not be doing any, there's no cooking equipment. We're not doing cooking at the hotel. We'd be bringing food from the property. So there's not any equipment really being used besides rewarming things that would be able to be served. I did see, Galen, that you had put down one of the areas that I did not address was how we would be getting rid of garbage, and we would be bringing it back to the hotel and using our dumpsters. The lighting that we're proposing, we want to use everything in a soft, very soft sense. I had provided some pictures to you in our application for to depict the type of atmosphere that we're looking to convey here through these events. And the same thing with noise. We're not proposing to have, loud bands or DJs. This would be more acoustical background music. The events that we're proposing would be smaller weddings, rehearsal dinners, corporate groups, fundraisers, etc. There's no signs. I'm just kind of looking through the memo that Galen had submitted to me in response to all the different information. Staff. Helene has about 14 parking spaces that are, everything is dirt out there, nothing's paved or anything. And so what the area that Galen and I looked at, we looked at about 14 parking spaces. She, of course, is still going to operate the farm. She's still going to operate her greenhouses. That business goes on during the day. What we're proposing to do happens at night. So the parking spaces that her staff and her guests or her clients that would be coming in would be using during the daytime would be an offset to what we would be using at nighttime. And we are also wanting to provide transportation from the property to Black Rock via our shuttles. To be able to bring people out there to reduce the amount of traffic that would be coming and going. So, what else did? We're not planting anything. Her property is beautiful, if anybody's been out there. There's nothing no need to, because we're not adding any structures to it. Helene's gardens and her whole property is completely organic, which we have the same practices at the Nonantum, so we wouldn't be using any kind of pesticides or anything along those lines. Anything that we would use for bug control are going to be fans, natural citronella or mint-based type products.
Traffic. You want to go over how you're dealing with traffic on the site?
Such as the
Shuttling.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
that's bringing people on our shuttles from the hotel over to the site, so that we'd be dropping people off and mitigating, obviously, how much traffic is going to be over there. I did meet with the fire chief, and Helene and I had met with him just to review what we're doing. He has no issues with anything that we're proposing from his standpoint. The only thing that he recommended is that we have fire extinguishers that we bring with us, which we've already ordered through our company, or through FireSafe.
So
And we
you
those
wouldn't
on
have a
property.
problem if that was made a condition of the application,
What's that? I'm sorry.
keeping those fire extinguishers?
Oh, yeah,
there?
no. Helene, absolutely. We would have absolutely no problem with that, and Helene encourages it. We'll probably get we'd get extras as well, that we would leave. We'll bring some with us, but we'll leave some out there as well.
Your buses are a real attribute because beside parking, obviously if they have a wedding or even a business event after hours, there's drinking. That's really great to have got a real advantage with your shuttles.
Yeah, it's a twofold thing for sure. I mean, obviously, we don't, you've all been out towards, in that area. It's dark, it's windy. And yes, absolutely, to your point, Scott, if, people are going to be drinking, we certainly don't want them driving.
I have a question actually a couple of questions about that. You say your hours are going to be like from 5 to 10 or so?
My point was saying that we're not going to be doing anything late night. That's nothing that we're interested in doing in any way,
Right.
shape, or form. And we don't plan on overlapping anything with Helene's business during the day.
Oh, that's one of my questions. The parking, you wouldn't be overlapping in parking between customers for your farm? No.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so much room.
The one question I have about that is, suppose you have some handicap customers that need to get out there and they can't go in your transport but need their own handicap van, so you have room for them if they had to do that?
Oh, yeah, we would make sure. I mean, and if we had to sacrifice our staff not being it, we would carpool staff, or we would drop our staff off out there to accommodate for that. And certainly you can put that in as a condition, that we would make sure that the parking would be accommodated for, to always ensure that there was ADA compliant, or I don't know if that's compliance, but ADA consideration for parking.
But they would either have to follow you, or if you're talking about a dark winding road into the farm, you would have to give them some guidance as well as parking space.
Sure, yep.
Yeah, okay. Weddings and rehearsal dinners can be very problematic.
In what sense?
One, with noise. A lot of weddings, they don't use just acoustical, music, but they blast electronically. And that sort of thing can definitely get to the neighbors very quickly. The other thing about weddings and wedding guests is you have to have enough staff around to control them. There are a bunch of relatives who usually don't always agree. And
But I see, Nina, just to clarify, and I certainly understand what you're saying, because we are a very large wedding destination at the Nonantum, so we may be very subject to those loud, unruly people for sure. We may have experienced it in the past. What we're proposing out there is a completely different environment and a completely different event. I mean, these are very carefully curated events, and it's not for everybody.
Right.
It's going to be for a more mature, discerning clientele, if you will.
Okay,
And
but
priced.
what I'm saying there is that I think you need to have some noise restrictions.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
and in terms of you can't have DJs and everybody going off. I know that was a problem. The last place I lived was across from a ski area, and they started to have nightly get-togethers
Gatherings.
outdoors, and the neighbors were saying, I can't take this. And they went to acoustics, and it was fine.
Great.
It was not a problem.
Okay.
You know, they just took care of it. And the other thing I was thinking of is the B&B that abuts me had a problem with a wedding party at night where, you know, the boyfriend that the girl brought along started to strangle her after an argument, and the police had to be called. So I just want you to be aware of, you know, like I said, people don't always get along after they're drunk.
Again, having,
But
may
you
have,
have a
may,
lot of
I may have a little bit of
experience in that.
experience with some of those types of scenarios, but
Okay.
thank you for
Are you
bringing that
going
up.
to limit the numbers of guests at these things?
We're looking, as I said, at an average of 50. There may be 30. There's a few that may be a little bit more than that, might be up to 100, but our average, where we want to keep everything, is under 50. The type of events that we're looking to have out there, does not allow for large numbers. This is supposed to be a very small farm-to-table curated event, but it's not to say there might not be a one-off, but we
Yeah.
would impose the same restrictions.
Would you be accepting of a limit on,
We could certainly, we certainly could talk about that, but again, that's nothing that we're going to be promoting,
right?
so.
Okay. But if the planning board decided after listening to abutters or something like that who are concerned, if they put in, for example, the number of events per year, put a limit on that.
Well, and actually, even in regards to, and I apologize if I interrupted you,
No, go
Nina.
ahead.
But, you know, we've also spoken with Helene about that. She doesn't want a party at her house every weekend. Yeah, she lives there. So we are very conscientious about our working relationship with her and knowing, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, it's a great benefit to the Nonantum to be doing this, but the greater need here is Helene and her property. And she's such an amazing steward of her land, and we're very respectful of that. And so, yes, we would definitely be looking to limit the number of events that we have out there and the timing of those events so that it doesn't impede on her living situation.
Okay. All right.
Tina, what's the closest abutter residence?
I don't, you know, it's really interesting because I know I submitted the,
I live across the street from the entrance to her farm. Been living there since 1950.
his house.
Okay.
Okay.
I know there were 19 abutters that when I submitted within the 200 feet were on the list. I apologize, I don't know exactly
so-
the distances.
So within 200 feet.
Oh, I'm just,
Yes.
oh, how far is that?
Yeah, no.
Across the
Repeat
street
what
from,
he said, we can't, have to. for the
so,
microphone.
the,
The farm is in Stacy's backyard.
No, well, they can't hear you
right.
electronically, so.
Yes, so the closest abutter is directly across the street from the farm, so I don't know what the width of the, yeah. Stream. Stream.
Okay.
And you have in the memo, there is distances, approximate distances from the structures and the property lines to give you an idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, so the location of where events will take place will be approximately how far away?
X amount, oh, okay. I don't know the answer to that, Scott, but I certainly can get that information and
It'd
get
be
it off to
interesting.
you. Sure.
I mean, with that noise, if it's 1,000 feet and there's some trees in between, that makes a big difference.
Okay. Yep.
We're pretty remote, but yes, people will be able to hear some.
Okay, nobody
No.
online can hear you, so.
Okay, Mike, do you have anything?
I know the one issue that's come up before with event things, in addition to the noise, was any outdoor fire pits or smoke.
That's not in anything that we want to do. We don't want to add to the fire chief's work. Thanks.
Okay, so there's
Yeah.
no going to be none of that. Okay.
Okay.
And so the way I understand what Nina said is we would probably put a maximum number of events and a maximum number of people as conditions.
Yeah, you might want to consider what that
Should
would
be.
be.
Okay.
That's all. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Ed?
Yes, please. First, thanks, Tina. Do I understand correctly that you've essentially had a year of this under your belt? You've done 4 events already?
We've only done
that-
two. We've only done 2.
2. Do you have any problems?
Mm-mm.
I mean, that we would be interested in? No.
We learned that we need more fans for mosquitoes. So that was, but I guess that's nothing you're interested in. But no, we
Nothing
really,
that's
we really-
safety related
Yeah,
or,
no, we were actually that's why I think my staff was really encouraged to do more out there because of how easy it was. Because we were able to bring, the chairs and the tables and execute. As far as the the logistics of having, the bathrooms where we put them in proximity to the food service and the execution of the events were all very close. We didn't have any issues with traffic. I mean, honestly, it was a very easy, both events were incredibly smooth.
so I would argue that you've kind of done a soft start
We
on
did.
this concept.
I would agree and that's why I feel like we're the turtle that's going to win the race on this one, because that's a very, very good analogy, is we have been very slow and systematic because because this is a big step for us to be doing this, and we want to make sure that we're going to be able to execute it properly.
You put your name on it, sure. You mentioned you talked to the fire chief, and that triggered me thinking, I admit to not having been to the facility. If you had an emergency, could emergency equipment, fire trucks, or even an ambulance, a chems ambulance, could they get up to the door?
Yes, they most certainly can, and that was actually one of the points in his letter, was making sure that access was clear, and that's certainly not a problem. She has a very wide road that we wouldn't
Wonderful.
be impeding. Yep.
Well, when you said the fire chief had looked at it, I wanted to assume that he's been wonderful in work planning board and very thoughtful, and we've learned a lot from him. And one last practical question. I know you can't fit 100 people in your bus, so you're going to make trips from the Nonantum. I'm struggling with imagining that all 100 of those people are going to stay at the Nonantum, or is that going to be a requirement?
They would park at the Nonantum.
But you
Because
don't have the parking at the Nonantum for them.
No, but typically what this is, I mean, again, this is an offshoot we're not looking to have people just have an event with us. We're looking to have people stay with us that will maybe have an event one night at the Nonantum, perhaps the wedding's on Saturday night, but they want a smaller rehearsal dinner. So the rehearsal dinner would be on Friday night, would be a very different experience. So, yeah, I'm not, again, we're
Let
not.
me make sure I get my question out, okay?
I think what I hear what you're saying is, so if we're shuttling them from the Nonantum, where are they going to park?
I'm imagining that not all of them are going to stay with you. They're already hotel guests. You've struggled, but you've done a pretty good job of carving out enough parking. Barely. I know you still,
We
to
work
manage
it.
it, have
We
to
work
actively
it.
manage it. Now you're going to have a wedding party, and on the day, they're going to have some additional people that are going to show up.
Okay, I'm sorry, yes, I understand. So what
Where you put them?
we would do some off-site parking. We work with Consolidated School. We get permission to use their parking lot obviously when school's not in session. And Conservation Trust is right around the corner from Helene's, and I know that we've spoken with them about being able to utilize some of the parking over there as well.
I like that answer. Thank you.
Yep.
George, do you have anything?
Thank you, Tina. No, I have no questions.
Okay.
So I had a few questions. So thanks for this, Tina. I really appreciate this. So I had some of the same concerns that Nina had, one of them being noise. And so the land use ordinance, section 6.16, has some thoughts on this. May want to just take a look at it.
The decibel levels, yes.
Yep. But I think, the question I have is, once you start doing this, if you get some complaints, do you have a contingency plan in place to mitigate the noise? I mean, there's soundproof blankets. I mean, there's all sorts of things you could do, like you said, plant trees or whatever, but you may want to think about how you could ameliorate noise levels if your abutters had some complaints.
Certainly, I mean, again, it's not our intention to get to that level, but Helene has a great relationship with her neighbors. And if there's any problems, I would be hopeful that they can reach out and we can certainly solve whatever issues that they have. Because we certainly don't want it to get to that point, and we don't want to have events like that.
One
Okay.
of the ways our ski area solved that problem was to take the stage and turn it around so it faced the ski area rather than across the street.
Yeah, just so the noise doesn't project in a certain
That's
way.
right.
Yep.
Yes.
So then I like your porta potty idea, that looks good, and then you're not gonna add any lights, you've already got lights on structures out there, so are you gonna add any tents or any of that kind of thing on a temporary basis?
We could, but we don't need to,
Okay,
because we have the pergolas and we have the greenhouses. It's not to say that we wouldn't if we had an event that needed it, but it wouldn't be a regular occurrence.
And that event would probably require a special permit also.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just saying,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, we'd end up having to get a tent permit if that was the case.
So then I guess your water supply is wells, so you're gonna have to add any water capacity for this?
We just put a well in.
Just put a well in, got a new well already, okay. And then I did appreciate seeing the comment from the fire chief, that's great. And then the parking, that sounds like you got that covered, so that's all my questions.
Great, thank
I
you.
have a comment for you. I've recently started using artificial dragonflies that you can get at Amazon. They eat mosquitoes. And
Really?
if you put them in your bouquets and all around in the pergola, you may find that the mosquitoes want to go elsewhere.
Artificial dragonflies? I'm writing that down.
Mosquitoes.
Write that down, Tracy.
Used to be able to get the real ones down in the wells, but they stopped doing it.
Yeah.
They used to fly in and then decide that wasn't right and leave anyway.
Right?
But Nina, thank you for that suggestion. We're always looking for ways to be able to.
Well, I got that from a
just-
horseback rider who
Oh,
used to put it over on her horse's harness on the bridle because horseflies would notice that and they'd disappear. They wouldn't
Interesting.
bother the horse.
We'll try anything.
yes,
We spend millions on beneficial insects.
I know.
great, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, so I guess I'll take a motion to
I move
declare
that,
this one complete.
I move that the application is complete.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Approve.
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 Thank you. So we'll see you back in 2 weeks for the public hearing. Fantastic.
I assume that we get one more approval out of
I
the
apologize.
Zoomers.
Out of what?
Approve?
Approved.
Are you
It is
approving this
complete.
application? Okay.
Okay, his hand is raised. Okay. So, thank you very much.
Thank you
And we'll
very
see you in a
much.
couple weeks.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we neglected to make
Oh,
case manager volunteers for 3 items that we talked about tonight. So, from the top,
Gotta
the
mention that.
Goose Rocks pickleball. Don't all jump in at once.
Okay, I'll do the pickleball.
Okay, so number 1 is Larry. Okay, the garage on Kings Highway. Okay, I will do the garage on Kings Highway.
I'll do the non-anthem.
And, okay, Nina will do the non-anthem.
Okay,
So we'll take one more motion then.
Motion to adjourn.
second.
In
Thing
favor?
for you.
Oh, wait.
May 9th, I wanted to put on your calendar, the Board of Selectmen is having a public hearing for all the ordinance changes that they're doing for the June ballot. So you're
Yeah.
invited to attend. I just wanted to put that out there.
Do we get to see him?
Pardon? What'd you say?
Do we get to see him first? That's just, weird.
Yeah, they're
Weird
already
events.
there. Yep,
Here at 6?
yes.
The next, on June 6th?
May 9th is when,
May 9th.
May 9th is when they're having the public hearing, and then June will be the vote for the town. Yeah.
Are we invited to attend or
Yes.
do you need a quorum there?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's what I was shared with, from the clerk, is that they said to invite the GPC and the planning board, so.
Invite is one thing. Making a brief joint meeting, which requires three of us be there, is something else. And that's what we've done
I will double
on
check
such
and get
things
back
in
to
the
you.
past.
Yeah, I'll double check and get back to you.
Because I've had to, call it to order and then call it.
Yep, yep,
So, yeah, find that out.
yep.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention too is you've all received the memo from the GPC regarding their 2024 goals and priorities of what they'd like to look at. They sent that memo to you, and then they sent it to the Board of Selectmen. If you have any feedback of what they should be looking at to change or review, if there's different priorities that you have noticed, now's the time to give feedback, because the Board of Selectmen at their next meeting on Thursday, the following Thursday, they're going to say, this is what we think you should be doing, so.
Which memo is that?
I just sent that to you last week. It was the GPC memo of their 2024 goals and strategies. Basically, it's just homework. If you want to come to that meeting next Thursday, you can, or just send your comments to the Board of Selectmen if there's some other types of direction you'd like for the GPC to focus on this year. We're trying to all row in the same boat, so.
Okay.
And when you say the next one, that's April 18th?
That's the 11th is the
11th.
next meeting.
Okay.
Tom, before you came, I mentioned to Galen that I'm starting to get all these papers that I insert into my land use ordinance and updates and things. And
Right.
after the vote in June, if we have, approval of that, it would be nice to get new
Nice
copies of the
clean
land,
copies.
of the land use
I
ordinance.
always use the online one. I've given up my,
You did?
because the online one, at least I hope is up to
Yep,
date.
yep, it is,
Right,
it is.
and this thing is not.
I'm still a traditionalist, I still have my paper.
I
keep
like
it
to
here
have
too.
paper in
Yeah.
front
Me
of me,
too.
yes,
I get it.
Yeah.
okay.
We can do that, certainly.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yep.
All right, so we have to finish adjourning here.
Yep,
We-
sorry.
We started,
Okay,
Approve.
approve.
I approve.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Zoomers.